what is the Cowgirl Run Fund? We'll start off there. What is it?
Do you want me to jump in first, Joanne?
Yep, that'll be great.
So the Cowgirl Run Fund is a nonpartisan political action committee, or PAC, that supports women running for state and local office in Wyoming. Our mission is to help elect more women so that women's voices are present in shaping public policy. And really our goal is to build a pipeline of women who are seasoned in political leadership. And that's in part, and I'm sorry if I talked over you, Joanne, but that's in part because really having more diverse voices at the table and having women's voices at the table really leads to very different kind of policy and policy discussions.
All right, Joanne, do you have anything to add?
I've been involved in the partisan side of politics as well as working on campaigns in the state for 15 plus years, and I look around and I see fewer people that look like me and represent my voice than I see in other groups. And so for me, it was really just trying to broaden the base of who is involved in politics. And the way that I could do that in an approachable way is to encourage women to do that, because I am a woman, and I understand some of the issues that I face professionally and in politics. And I thought that I could lend some guidance to women who were interested in doing that, pursuing those activities. And so for me, it's just increasing the number of people involved in the process, in particular with this PAC, the number of women involved in the process.
And we talked a little bit about last time how Wyoming ranks bottom 5 in women in the legislature. So can you tell me, we touched on it a little bit in the why, or what the fund is, but why was it created?
Well, exactly as you said. I mean, Wyoming ranks consistently in the bottom 5 in terms of women in elected office. And that's true not just in the state legislature, which gets a lot of attention for only having right now 16 out of the 90 members in the entire body are women, but also at the county commission level. I want to say it is 18 of 93 county commissioners are women, right? So it's a similarly low percentage. And a lot of the time we talk about how it's really hard to get to Cheyenne, there's not childcare, there's not a salary for those legislators. And all of that is true, but that makes it a big obstacle for lots of people, not just women. And county commission is local. It's usually a compensated position, and you still see a pretty low number of women participating, women getting elected, even women running. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure was that, again, we're filling that pipeline with women and women's voices, women's perspectives, and that diversity of perspectives, right? Because there's not just one woman's perspective. You can't have, one woman on your board and then like you've checked that box and she represents the rest of us. We have really diverse perspectives, and that's actually part of what was so exciting and so much fun, not just about our first class of endorsed candidates, but also about the group of women who founded this. We do not all agree on probably anything. And so I think that we wanted to make sure that that's better represented across the state.
Joanne, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to make the point that, when people think of politics, the people have a tendency to look at the national level versus the local level. And so quite frankly, I always concentrate at the state down, and in particular at the local level. Local politics impacts your life and your family's life far more than anything at the national level. And so, as Jen said, with the state legislature in Wyoming being what it is, it's tough for working parents in general, especially working women who have the tendency to be the primary caregiver, to be gone for 2 months of the year. But there are local offices, there's municipalities, there's county commissioners, there's other local offices, school boards, college boards, that kind of thing, that are elected positions that I think that, we can get more women involved in those groups. And those local bodies are the ones that really need more diverse voices, because they do impact your daily life and your family's daily life at a much more they're much more impactful than at the national level. So Jen mentioned building a pipeline. So we always talk about how a candidate isn't going to just jump into this and decide that they're going to run for governor having no background. Our intent is to start at those lower offices and encourage women to run, build that body of work in their political life, and so they can be looking at those higher offices. Especially in Wyoming, when we look at those statewide and then the nationals, pretty much those people are not coming out of left field. They have worked their way through some elected positions up from the municipal and county levels and have built that body of work. And so we really want to encourage women to be doing that, getting in the pipeline and gaining that experience from local offices on up. So I just wanted to make that point.
Mm-hmm. And Joanne, when did the fund begin, and how many Republicans and Democrats have you been able to help with this fund?
Jen's got the stats on this. She's our data guru.
Well, we started last year. I mean, we literally launched on January 2nd of 2020 in anticipation of, a really heated election cycle. And it was a really even split. Like, we were very, very committed to being a nonpartisan fund and supporting across the political spectrum. So it was 13 Republicans, 14 Democrats, 1 independent, and then 4 women who were running in nonpartisan races. And that actually was reflective, I think, of our selection committee, which was an even split in terms of party affiliation. And also shows that, there are women running across the political spectrum, including for nonpartisan races, and that we were able to help them all in a very even fashion.
Okay. So you said, I didn't send this out because you just said something about it, so I'm curious now. When you say selection process, do you decide who to donate to?
Yes, like a lot of other political action committees, we do have a process. And so we had a pretty rigorous process. In fact, you had to, women opted in. We had a short application form, written application, that they could download and submit to indicate that they were interested. And then we interviewed, well, I shouldn't say we, I took notes, but our selection committee did interviews with every single woman who applied. So they committed a huge amount of volunteer time to have conversations in that group setting with a very specific set of questions, right? We are committed to the nonpartisan piece, so didn't necessarily want to hear anything about your policies, which pains me to say as a policy person, but what we wanted to know was that you had a history of civic involvement and engagement, that you were active in your community, that you have a history of supporting other women, and that you were really conscious of what your voice could bring to the table. And then in addition, that you were prepared to mount and run a real campaign, that you had the skills and the framework and the plan to be successful. Because what we wanted was, again, this diversity of voices at the table, and being sure that you have those basic things, right? The civic engagement, the commitment to women, and the commitment to your campaign was what was primarily important to us. And so that was the basis for the interviews. And I know, Joanne, you probably have more specific thoughts on that selection process.
It was rigorous, and we did have applicants did need to apply to the PAC, which is a little bit different. Some in the state do it independent of that. Women had to apply to us, and then we did go through those questions. We did have the 4 criteria. The other is, do you support what we're trying to do as a PAC? And so, there were some not so pleasant things thrown around after a bit about us being a bit misogynistic and that sort of thing. But we really did want women who were involved in their community, had done the work, were prepared to be out there. And it wasn't for us simply, are you a woman, are you not a woman? It was, the whole concept of, you shouldn't vote for me because I'm a woman. You should vote for me because I'm the best person for this job. And we really did try to vet candidates that met those criteria. Um, we didn't simply want the the wink and a nod to everyone wins a trophy kind of thing. We really are trying to prepare women for running campaigns, and like anything else, public service is it's time consuming. It requires thought. It requires pragmatism, and so we wanted to make sure that the women that we were funding and that we were endorsing really were prepared to do so, and were aligned with what we were trying to do as a PAC. And so we did have a very rigorous process to be able to vet those candidates. So,
And how many of your candidates that you endorsed won?
we don't release those percentages. We just would prefer not to do that. We want to continue to our efforts in the next election cycle, and so we as a body determined that we weren't going to release those. But we have kind of regrouped after the first election cycle, and we're going to do more trainings and more mentoring in the off years and then in elections. So for us, it sort of expanded what we wanted to do. When we first initially looked at this, it was, well, we just need to get money in the hands of women and then they'll run. And it really turned into, I mean, money is great. And, we want to encourage women how to ask for money and how to monetize their talents and be able to, I mean, it's a skill that I think people need to learn better anyway, especially women, just negotiating on, how to ask for money and how to do that better. But it really turned into, people want more information, they want training, they want nuts and bolts of how to do that. And as Jen said, we did it in a nonpartisan way. We were very careful about doing that. We did no policy questions. We didn't ask how do you feel on X, Y, or Z? We did none of that. It really was around preparing women. So as we go forward, it will be more a broader approach than even just candidates. It will be women who are thinking, well, like, I have young kids now, or I have an elderly parent and I can't dedicate the time, or I'm new in my career, or whatever those things are. But I'd like to know what that process looks like. So if I make a determination, I know what I'm getting myself into. We also had a lot of people reach out in terms of, I want to help with campaigns. I don't want to be the candidate, but I've got a friend who's, doesn't matter what gender the candidate is, but I'm a woman who wants to work on a campaign, and how do I better do that? So we as a body decided to not release how many had applied versus what we did, just because we are kind of expanding what we're doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that.
Well, and I had one more thing, and in the interview process, one of the things we asked was, hey, do you want campaign support, money, or mentoring? Which of these can we offer to you? And everybody wanted everything, but to pick up on what Joanne's saying, that mentoring piece turned out to be really, in a lot of ways, the thing that separated our PAC from maybe a lot of other PACs, but also maybe the glue that kind of held some of it together and reinforced that nonpartisan nature. Because we partnered and directed people to various trainings, but then we would do what we called mini mentoring sessions. So we get everybody on Zoom, and that becomes a group of people who represent a wide variety of political perspectives, and also levels of office, sharing information like throughout the campaign season, sharing information about how they're campaigning, what would be, what's been working, how they've been feeling if they've been attacked in their primary, which several of our candidates experienced. Yeah. And just really essentially building a community for each other, which I think for me, was one of the most exciting parts of what we were able to accomplish, because you really could see this situation where, people had very, very different policy perspectives and are going to have to work together in a legislative body. But had this shared experience of saying, like, this is how this is going for me, or this is how this went for me during my campaign when we debriefed post-campaign. And so those connections, we really feel will also kind of bear fruit for the state over the long haul, because we're in a polarized climate right now, let's face it. And it's highly partisan. And so any opportunity that we have that also bolsters that, like, I have a relationship with you and we both care about the state and we have the same values. We don't necessarily agree on what policies we should implement to get there, but I respect you and I'm going to work with you to try and figure out how we can do the best for Wyoming in the long run. Like, that was the piece that I carried away from our 2020 inaugural Cowgirl Run Fund year, as probably the most powerful.
Okay. And then, so I was going to ask, why is it important? But I feel like we answered that in the beginning. I am going to jump into, because I feel like this kind of goes with it. Joanne, you were censured by the Wyoming GOP because of this. Why?
So I am on the state GOP Central Committee and on the state GOP Executive Committee. And so it is highly partisan. I think Wyoming is no different than at the national level where you're seeing this. And I think, anyone who's paying attention to politics is seeing the kind of the split in the party right now. And, I don't want to get too much into that, but that case is certainly present in the state. And there's two bodies or there's two lines of thought. One is sort of the classic conservative, small government closest to the people, fiscally conservative sort of bent. And the other is much more ideological about, who should be allowed in the party. The first body, the classic body, is sort of, I identify as a Republican because I find these things to be how I look at things in a framework, and I'm in that camp. And sort of the Republican big tent. And then the other is very much like, we have these very rigorous sets of rules, and if you don't follow those rules, then we don't want you here. And we're going to try to minimize the number of people who are involved in things. So can you hear me okay? My internet just did a unstable.
Yeah. You were in and out a little bit, but I got majority of it.
You want me to start that part again? Because it was like, I got a flash.
I think I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, you.
I'll just continue kind of mid thought, and then
okay.
I'll just kind of start mid process again, and then go. So, so there are two sort of parts of the party right now, both at the state level and at the national level, and one is sort of the classic small government closest to the people, fiscally conservative, socially conservative, but big tent and self-identified. Are you a Republican? Then you're welcome in the party. That Reagan's big tent basis for the Republican Party. The other is an outspring of like the Tea Party and that kind of hardcore sort of, do you fit this model? If you don't, then we don't want you in the party. And so Wyoming, like a lot of states, is sadly in that situation with the state GOP. So as I said, I am on the state GOP body as a representative from my county. And when I started this PAC, like I said, I did it because I look around and I don't see a whole lot of women. And I think our voices need to be heard. I think our voices need to be heard at the state level. In the legislative body much more, and the way that I could do that was encourage women who had the desire to run, to help them figure out how, what could I do to help them run and to encourage them to run, those who are interested. So given the nature of the state party, I didn't think it would be a really popular decision, but I wasn't expecting the backlash. We are a nonpartisan PAC. We are comprised of women from all sorts of on all spectrums on the political standpoint. I'm one of the most conservative. I come from an oil and gas background. I have a large family. I check all the boxes. But I also want to build that pipeline of women, and was willing to do that in a nonpartisan way. It also allowed us to do it from a nonpartisan perspective, to look at municipal offices and boards and commissions, which are, the municipal offices are all nonpartisan. So it just gave us a deeper bench of where we could start, instead of starting just at the party level. I already recruit as a body or as a member of the leadership in the Republican Party, I already recruit women to run for Republican offices, but this was just a broader approach. So again, I didn't think the state party was going to be thrilled, but I didn't expect them to be that upset about it. I was not present at the meeting where I was censured, and so I only have the minutes from the minutes from the meeting, and quote, my censure was for my quote campaign activities. So that said, I've gotten a lot of pushback about, I should have been putting my efforts forth. If I wanted, people elected, I should be working only to get Republicans elected, which again does nothing for municipal offices because those are nonpartisan. So, the other part was that I should be working to get all Republicans elected and not just women. I was a misogynist because I was only trying to get women elected. The day after my censure, there was a letter submitted from a former women legislator, definitely not in the same, camp as me politically, but she did mention that women were adequately being represented by the men in their lives. And so there was no reason for women to be running for office, which I thought was disheartening. So to sum it up, I was not expecting that level of vitriol from my activities from trying to get more women elected to the state, in the state. So does that cover what you are looking for? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I also say that it created a groundswell of support for the PAC?
Sure did. Yeah, it was it got us a lot of attention. I will say that. So I would also like to make the point too that it was 150 years, the anniversary for women. Being recognized as having the right to vote in Wyoming. That was our 150th year. So the year that we were celebrating us being the equality state was the same year that I was censured by the state body for wanting to get more women elected to public office. So I think the optics of that were telling. I'll just say that. So.
Yeah. How can a woman who has the idea to run and is looking to run, how can she apply to be part of your PAC?
Well, a couple of things. What I would say first is that because we're in an off year, what we'll be doing pretty soon is starting to help women self-select, like you just suggested, and point them in the direction of trainings, whether it's our trainings, other partners in the state of Wyoming, other nonpartisan groups across the country have started training women. And much like Joanne said, groups like She Should Run have trainings, and they consider themselves sort of the wide mouth of the funnel to say, maybe I want to run for office. Maybe I want to run for office in 10 years. Maybe I just want to help somebody else on their campaign. And help them kind of identify what their role in a campaign process would look like, which it's proven to be a really great tool for helping women enter into that process. So we'll be directing folks to trainings, we'll be offering some mentoring throughout the year. And then in addition to that, one of the things I would say is always, always, always go to the governor's website and look at the boards and commissions, because those boards and commissions that are appointed by the governor are a great, great place to get yourself into the pipeline. If you're new to the process, if you're thinking like, yeah, I'm not sure like politics is for me, it looks pretty ugly out there, but I love this state and I want to figure out how to get more involved, that's a great place to start. And there's still a real gender split in terms of those boards and commissions. There's still a lot more men on most of those boards and commissions than women. And those places are good places to start. They need women's voices. When we get into 2022, we will repost our endorsement process, because candidates will have filed for office by the end of May of 2022. And one of the things that I didn't say earlier, but we kept our process to, was you need to have filed for office in order to get an endorsement or get funds from us. And so it looks a little bit different before the election cycle starts. versus after the election cycle has begun. So we'll be posting, we just revamped our website, we'll be posting information about what we're offering in this non-election year, but it really is, as Joanne said, about leadership development and about directing women to resources this year.
Okay. Is there anything else that I might have forgotten that you want to say real quick? I think Zoom might yell at me here soon.
Just thank you for drawing attention to this. I think it's important, and I think you know, my big push outside of the PAC is just to get more people involved in the process, regardless of party, gender, whatever. I think we just need more people. You know, the more diverse opinions out there, the better rounded the public policy debate goes. So, you know, encouraging young people to get involved in it, you know, the disaffected, those who are not involved in the process, everything from voting on up. I think we just need a much more broader base of people who are involved in the process.
Hear, hear.
Okay. Well, thank you ladies so much. I'm going to end the record now.